You did the math. You always do the math. Income minus rent, minus utilities, minus groceries, minus the subscriptions you keep forgetting to cancel, and there's a number left. It's not a great number, but it exists. It should exist at the end of every month, sitting quietly in your savings account, slowly growing into something that feels like solid ground. Instead, you open the app and the number is gone. Again. Not stolen. Not wasted on anything dramatic. Just gone. Dissolved into a fog of small decisions that each felt completely justified at the time. Here's the part nobody frames as a financial problem. Financial stress doesn't just feel bad. It costs money. Not as a metaphor, not as a mindset concept. Literally, neurologically, measurably, with a mechanism so specific you can map exactly where your savings account went. Because the budget is fine. The math is fine. The problem is the brain running the budget. And that brain is not the same brain on a stressed Tuesday night that it was on the calm Sunday afternoon when you set everything up. When your brain detects a financial threat, checking your account and feeling that knot, receiving a bill you forgot about, seeing a coworker mention a vacation when you're 3 weeks from your next paycheck, your adrenal glands fire cortisol into your bloodstream. That's not psychology. That's chemistry. And here's what cortisol does that nobody's treating as a money management issue. It suppresses the prefrontal cortex. That's the part responsible for comparing options, calculating long-term consequences, and protecting next month's version of you. Cortisol doesn't consult that part. It shuts it down and runs on something older, faster, and completely indifferent to your budget. A landmark study found that financial stress alone reduces cognitive capacity equivalent to losing 13 IQ points. Not because you become less intelligent under pressure. Because you are literally running different software. The same decision that was obvious last Sunday, no, we don't spend, we stick to the plan, becomes an entirely different calculation when cortisol is running the numbers instead of you. So every time you check the balance and feel that tightening, every end-of-month crunch, every social comparison that makes you feel behind, each one of those moments activates a biological process that actively costs you money. The money stress triggers the decision. The decision depletes the savings. Depleted savings increase the stress. You're not looking at a discipline failure. You're looking at a feedback loop that your own biology built, and it's been running quietly, invisibly, for years. Here's what makes this specific to your week. There are 3 moments in the average American week where this loop fires most predictably. Once you can name them, you can interrupt them. The first is Sunday night. Not because Sunday is special, because Monday is coming. The week ahead carries its weight before it arrives. The account balance you haven't checked, the expense you know is pending, the rent calculation you've done 4 times already. That moment when you open the banking app just to see where things stand, that's not a neutral act. That's a financial stress trigger. And what happens in the 40 minutes after checking a balance that makes you anxious? The brain doesn't reach for saving strategies. It reaches for relief. Something small enough to feel justified: food delivery, a minor purchase, anything that moves the cortisol needle back toward calm. The relief is chemical and brief. The cost is numerical and permanent. Multiply that by every Sunday night this year. The second trigger is midweek. An unexpected expense, a car thing, a medical copay, an auto-renewal you forgot entirely. It doesn't need to be catastrophic. The brain doesn't measure threat in dollars. It measures it in loss of control. A $50 surprise registers in the same system that evolved to handle physical danger. The cortisol spike is disproportionate to the number, but perfectly proportionate to the feeling of things slipping. And once that spike is running, every spending decision in the next several hours happens in an altered state. Not bad decisions because you're irresponsible. Bad decisions because you're temporarily running a version of yourself without full access to the part that plans ahead. The third trigger is the subtlest, and the one most people never notice as a financial event. It's the social comparison moment. A coworker's new car, someone's dinner on social media, a friend casually mentioning a purchase that represents 2 weeks of your savings progress. The cortisol released in social comparison functions identically to the cortisol released from direct financial threat. Your brain cannot distinguish between "I am actually behind" and "I feel behind." Same hormone, same suppressed prefrontal cortex, same altered spending habits in the hours that follow, and no line on the bank statement that says social anxiety spending, 7:43 p.m. Here's where the picture changes completely. Most advice about money stress aims at mindset. Stop comparing yourself, think positively, reframe your relationship with money. That advice isn't wrong. It's aimed at the wrong level. You can't talk a cortisol spike down with affirmations. Not because you're weak, because that is not how the biological mechanism works. The prefrontal cortex you need for good financial decisions is the exact thing the cortisol has temporarily taken offline. What you can do is redesign the structure around the spike, so that when cortisol is running the controls, it doesn't have access to your savings account. 3 structural interventions, not motivational, architectural. The first is about timing. The single most financially costly habit most people have isn't overspending on big things. It's checking their balance while already stressed. Checking while anxious guarantees the result lands on a brain that can't process it well. Move your balance check to a fixed, low-stress time morning before the day has loaded, never Sunday nights, never within an hour of a stressor. This removes the loop trigger before it fires. You're not avoiding your finances. You're choosing which version of your brain gets to handle them. The second is pre-commitment. On a calm afternoon, not a stressed evening, make the financial decisions you need for the next 2 weeks. Automate transfers. Decide in advance what the next unexpected expense comes from. Write it somewhere visible. The reason this works isn't discipline. It's that you're making prefrontal cortex decisions and locking them in before cortisol can access the controls. The stressed version of you doesn't get a vote on something already decided. That's not willpower. That's engineering. The third is the buffer. Not a full emergency fund, just $500 to $1,000 that never moves, that exists purely to interrupt the threat signal before it becomes a cortisol spike. Research on financial stress and emergency savings consistently shows this specific range reduces financial anxiety significantly more per dollar than any other savings milestone. Not because of what it actually covers in an emergency, because of what it signals to your brain. There is a floor. That single message dials down the threat response before it hijacks your decision-making. It buys the prefrontal cortex back online before it gets shut out. These 3 things don't solve every financial challenge. They break the loop at its most predictable points. And every time the loop doesn't fire, the money that would have disappeared into a cortisol-driven decision stays in your savings account instead. Multiply that by 52 weeks, by 3 triggers per week, by years of running a feedback loop that was never labeled as a money problem because it felt too emotional to track. You were never irresponsible. You were human, running human biology without the operating manual. Now you have part of the manual. The second loop, the one running underneath this one, the one that explains why your spending habits reset every single month no matter how well the previous one went, that one's next. And it's the reason why fixing the budget never felt like enough.